So we talked so much about Kyle Schwarber owning the Blue Jays yesterday. Well, he came back and did the same thing. What's interesting is Kyle Schwarber could have been a Toronto Blue Jay.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. I'm Braden Iwasko. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5Iwasko. Carter First, too, as well on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays. As well, if you're new here on YouTube, make sure you drop a subscription. It really helps us out, keeps us top of your guys' page. We notice a lot of you guys aren't subscribed. And if you're coming back and you're watching a lot of our videos, you might as well. Doesn't hurt anybody. Helps us. Keeps us top of your page. I don't know. Seems good all the way around. And you can hit that little bell icon as well on YouTube. It will notify you if any videos go live. So there you go. 2 for 1 if you're on YouTube there. Anywhere else, we really appreciate you listening, staying tuned in with us through this sort of dog days of Blue Jays baseball. Like we said, we got a lot coming up in the next few days. A lot in the works. The boys have been putting in the works here to sort of behind the scenes here. We got a lot of stuff coming to you guys. A lot of talks sort of coming into the off season. A lot of things going on. So keep your eye out for that. Carter. We talked a little bit about Kyle Schwarber yesterday and just how good he was. The cool thing about all that, cool thing, I guess, I don't know. Maybe that's the wrong way to say this. An interesting thing about this is that Kyle Schwarber could have been a Toronto Blue Jay.
Yeah, could have been. Shoulda, woulda, coulda, unfortunately. We're going way back in time, obviously. Kind of grasping at straws here. We're seeing what Kyle Schwarber did to Toronto Blue Jays over a 2-game set. And that's kind of where we're at. We're just Kyle Schwarber might own the franchise. But yeah, back in 2022, Kyle Schwarber was one of those players that was linked to the Toronto Blue Jays, was final candidate, obviously, with the Philadelphia Phillies. His contract, he had signed a 4-year, I think it was $79 million. It might have been like a 0.5, but $79 million over that 4 years. So under $20 million a year. And obviously would have paid off pretty greatly for the Toronto Blue Jays. Schwarber came out on a podcast, said that, the Blue Jays were one of his highly touted interests, ended up settling with the Phillies, has worked out pretty well for him, I would say. Because, again, you look at, we'll go over Kyle Schwarber's weekend to start, and then we'll kind of go over his stats since 2022, and then just how that would fit with the Toronto Blue Jays. So over the weekend, or not the weekend, the week, I guess you could say 2-game series, not even really the week either, just 2 days. But Kyle Schwarber, 7 for 9, 4 home runs, a double, 2 singles, 7 RBI. It's an insane stat line to even go over. 21 total bases, just some insane numbers. Kyle Schwarber had 48 total bases in the month of August. He had 21 in 2 games. Another unfortunate stat for the Toronto Blue Jays, Kyle Schwarber had 4 home runs over 2 games. Bo Bichette has 4 home runs this entire season. Alejandro Kirk has 1 more home run with 5 in the whole season. Then Kyle Schwarber has 4 in 2 games. So Kyle Schwarber, again, a guy that I guess the closest relation on the Toronto Blue Jays, I guess, would be Addison Barger. You get those lefty at-bats, guys that aren't going to hit for average necessarily, but are going to sell for power. If we can even get Addison Barger to be half of what Kyle Schwarber is, I think that's definitely going to be a W for the Toronto Blue Jays. But looking at Kyle Schwarber and looking at 2022, going into 2023, and then this season in 2024. So I'm not going to go too in-depth about this because you're going to kind of get the concept of what we're going over just based off a few stats. So you look at 2022, Kyle Schwarber had 46 home runs. You look at 2023, Kyle Schwarber had 47 home runs. You look at it so far this season after today, Kyle Schwarber has 32 home runs, and the season still has about 25 games left. Probably not going to get to 46, 47, but you're getting a common theme here. A lot of home runs. If you're going to have a guy that honestly can hit 30 home runs in your team, that's going to be a major difference. 46 and 47 is going to play, especially in a year of 2023. When you're looking at the Toronto Blue Jays, the offense was the big eyesore on that team. You looked, what did you need badly? You needed home runs. You needed a power bat. Kyle Schwarber would have fit in so well into that DH spot last season. You look at this season, you look at 2022, you have a bat as hot as Kyle Schwarber. that can fit anywhere in your lineup. There's pretty much throughout the entire like 2020s all the way up to this point, the big thing was we need a lefty bat, we need power bats. When you look at 2021, that wasn't necessarily the problem, but especially the last 3 seasons, Kyle Schwarber would have looked so good. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., George Springer, Bo Bichette, and then you have Kyle Schwarber slotted in. Maybe he's leading off. Maybe he's in the 2 spot. He's in your top 4. This would have solved so many Toronto Blue Jays problems. And after just watching this 2-game set, makes you think what could have been if Kyle Schwarber ended up going with the Toronto Blue Jays and going north with the decision to play baseball.
Yeah, dude, it sort of makes me a little bit sad. I mean, looking at some of his other numbers, right? His average this season, 248, an on-base percentage of 371, a slugging of 482, and an OPS of 853. And that would, well, it would put him technically at 4th in the Blue Jays right now, but that's counting Will Wagner and Nathan Lucas. So, I mean, he pretty much would be second on this baseball team so far this season. He would have been a big piece. And not saying that, I mean, you can't look back at some of this stuff after a few years and then have been like, oh, well, he could have been. But it's just interesting after this guy comes out and absolutely torches the Blue Jays for a whole 2-game series. To sort of not take a look back and think, oh man, what could have been. At the end of the day, hat tips to Kyle Schwarber, hat tips to the Phillies. They're playing unbelievable baseball. And you know what? I know that, as Blue Jays fans, we sort of will always have something over the Phillies with, touch 'em all Joe. But besides that, looking at this year, it's one of those things that just sort of sucks when you go into a 2-game set. I think you expect to split series like this. When it's a 2-game, doesn't really matter what position you're in the season. I feel like 2-game sets always end up being a split, or that's how it feels. And then to not get any of these wins on 2 games you had a chance to, I think is just upsetting. And we'll get into sort of what happened in yesterday's game a little bit more in the second segment here. But just going over Kyle Schwarber again, he's a bat that you really could use. And now looking at going into next season of 2025, that is the type of player that the Toronto Blue Jays are going to be looking at to sign. And a fielder that can play out there, or somebody that's going to slot into your DH and first base position, with Vlad maybe moving over and playing more 3-bag. So there's a lot of options here, but Kyle Schwarber is the epitome of what the Toronto Blue Jays could have used.
When you see how he changes a game just by himself, pretty much carrying the Philadelphia Phillies to a win in that first game. Again, you don't come back from 6-1 without hitting the long ball, having some power hitters on your team, and people having some pretty good swings. And Kyle Schwarber going against Bowdin Francis, the pitcher of the month, and first AB just launches in right field. Just a guy that, again, wasn't necessarily hot coming into the series either. Had a couple offers, did not have the greatest stretch, and then all of a sudden you go 9 for 7. Kind of turns around your last 7 pretty quickly. So looking at Kyle Schwarber again, like you look at 2021, you look at where the team was with all the power we had, how good the offense was. That's when Ross Atkins clearly decided to sell out for defense. You get Matt Chapman that year, a great defensive infielder. Does have some pop at the bat as well. But if you're looking at the direction of the Toronto Blue Jays for where Ross Atkins' head was at, it wouldn't have made sense that Kyle Schwarber was going to come there with how Ross Atkins was thinking. But the fact that he wanted to come here and had some interest, it was just definitely unfortunate with how things planned out and did pan out. But again, shoulda, woulda, coulda. You can look at Joey Ohtani, look at what he's doing this season, and be like, oh, if the Toronto just would have gave him $750 million, maybe that would have worked out for them. You knew Shohei Ohtani was going to be a good player. Again, you knew Kyle Schwarber was going to be a very good player as well. I didn't necessarily think 46, 47 home runs back-to-back years, dropping some 45 bombs on us real quick. But it's unfortunate, but we got some positives to look at. You got Vladdy, you got hopefully Bo Bichette for at least one more season. You got some prospects, but it's just a tougher pill to swallow after Kyle Schwarber just dunks on your franchise over 2 games, and especially when you're looking at the power numbers. Like, you could add the bottom half of this order, especially these prospects. You probably add up 6-7 guys in the Toronto Blue Jays out of their home runs. They're not even touching Kyle Schwarber. So when you look at those numbers, the home runs is what hits it the hardest for me. When the offense hasn't necessarily been the problem, I don't know if you could have God and his 8 best friends on a team, and with the bullpen, I don't know if it'd be a good team necessarily. But again, home runs make the game of baseball fun, and Kyle Schwarber hits home runs at a ridiculous rate.
Yeah, dude, he's fun to watch. And honestly, overall, this series, I don't think it was the most boring brand of baseball ever. It was pretty entertaining. Yeah, the second game took a couple innings off where nothing was really happening. But I think overall, it was a pretty fun sort of couple of games to watch. And especially just, how electric the Phillies are this year, and hat tips to them. I've always said this. I'm not a Bryce Harper guy, but that team has just some superstars on it, and it's hard to not like their brand of baseball. Carter, in saying that, we got a game to get into, and I do want to talk about it quite a bit here. So we got the sort of next couple segments. We're going to get into the game and talk about some of the little things we picked up from this 2-game series. We just got a quick ad break, and then we'll be right back with some more Blue Jays game day stuff.
Today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They're the easiest and most exciting way to play fantasy sports because it's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you can pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Prize Picks is very simple to play. I can make my picks and submit my entries in as little as 60 seconds. So I always go over my picks, what I usually throw down on Blue Jays games, but I'm just going to quickly go over just some options that you guys can throw money on with Prize Picks. So if you want to go the football route, there's obviously receiving yards, there's touchdowns, there's passing yards, any metric like that, yards, touchdowns. You look at baseball, you got strikeouts, hits, runs. You got so many different totals. Again, you can go total bases, you can go fantasy wise, you can go fantasy points, more than or less than. So all it takes is a simple click. You can pick what you think is going to happen in the game and make some money off of your football or MLB insight, whatever you decide to throw some money on. So if you know which player is going to perform on specific nights, this is absolutely a no-brainer. You can download Prize Picks and start making your picks today. You can download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit matchup to $100. It's code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit matchup to $100. Prize Picks. Run your game.
Sorry about that, Carter. Cut you off a little bit there. Just quick thing before we start to get into the sort of tough loss that was yesterday's baseball game. Happy birthday to Eric Swanson, a guy that we were always high on. Had a rough start to the season. Had some, obviously some family stuff going on at the start, but has really picked it up at the after the All-Star break. We'll get more to Eric Swanson. He's sort of a guy we want to feature on an episode here coming up. So we'll talk about him. But happy birthday to him. Yesterday was his birthday, so we didn't obviously get that in time, but watching the game, you picked it up and you're like, oh, it's this guy's birthday. So there you go. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to that guy. An up and down season, obviously. Has kind of figured it out over recently. So congrats to him. A guy that hopefully we can rely on for the 2025 season. But I just want to say one more thing about Kyle Schwarber before we finish off with the Philadelphia Phillies podcast, apparently that we've been doing with Kyle Schwarber recently. But Kyle Schwarber on the Toronto Blue Jays 2025. I guess you don't have Justin Turner, I guess, in this hypothetical. Does he make the Toronto Blue Jays playoff team for 2024? I know I said 2025. Not sure why. Already thinking that direction. But 2024. Does he make the 2024 Toronto Blue Jays playoff team?
No, probably not. Honestly, there's a lot of holes here. And we've seen that the offense can't do everything. The bullpen had to be better. There was a lot of games that, especially now you look, the bullpen is in rough shape. I don't think that this team would have, even with Kyle Schwarber, been a playoff team. There has to be fixes. There would have had to been more, but maybe he puts you closer where trades happen at the deadline. Maybe, it's all what ifs, but it's a good question. It's a good thought to, sort of ponder over the next few days of when, teams are in the playoffs and we're sitting on the sidelines. So you can always think about that one for sure. It's an interesting take. I don't know. What's your sort of thoughts on that? Do you think so?
I think it's very close if you have Kyle Schwarber on your team. Imagine a team with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Kyle Schwarber raking back-to-back. Like, you don't necessarily need Bo Bichette at that point. You have the starting pitching. You have your bullpen who's just been struggling the entire season. But this team at one point was like 6.5 games back of the Minnesota Twins. You look at earlier in the season, you get a little bit more offense. You get home runs. You get a big hit in some big spots. Maybe you win 4 or 5 more games earlier on the season. Again, maybe they don't make the playoffs. Do they do damage in the playoffs? Probably not. You probably get the same typical Toronto Blue Jays route that they take in the wild card series. But at least at this point, there would definitely be more meaningful baseball to watch. It's so on the fence for me. If I had to pick, I'd probably say no. I think the bullpen probably messes you up a little bit too much and has too many hiccups. But yeah, again, you look at Kyle Schwarber, what he could do if this team maybe won another 5 games. Maybe they don't sell at the deadline. This roster could be looking a whole lot different. But yes, a fun hypothetical to get into. But yeah, we got some Philadelphia Phillies and Toronto Blue Jays games to go over. I'm not going to be using the name Kyle Schwarber anymore. It'll just be the guy that launched on our franchise or something along those lines that will reference that guy for the rest of this podcast. But Braden, I guess I'll throw it back to you with, I don't know which game you want to start with. We could do highlights. We could do kind of whatever. Not a ton of highlights, I guess, for the Toronto Blue Jays when you lose Series 2-0, but some fun games of baseball to watch from a fan perspective.
Yeah, and you know what? We sort of covered the first game the other day, so I really do want to focus into what happened sort of in this past game. I think you know what I don't want to focus too much in on game to game, but it's sort of when it's sort of electric series like this and some more fun baseball to watch. It's nice to take a little bit deeper of a look. The big thing I take away from this past game, Carter, is how the Blue Jays answered in the first inning. You know, you don't see the Blue Jays in the start of the season put up a ton of runs in the first inning. They just couldn't do it. The Phillies put up a run in the first inning against Bowdin off the Kyle Schwarber home run. And then the Blue Jays can answer back and score two of their own, which it really I don't know. It just, that's nice to see after the tough start to this season that they had with scoring runs early in baseball games. So good on them. Another guy, we got to talk about Bowdin Francis. I mean, guy goes 6 innings, gives up 3 runs, 6 Ks. Not his best day, but I don't know. That still seemed pretty solid to me. I don't think it was completely terrible. Again, the Toronto Blue Jays score only 2 runs. So what do you expect is going to happen? It's if Bowdin Francis gives up 3 runs, the Blue Jays should put up more than that, you'd hope. So at the end of the day, it is what it is. Another guy I sort of want to, not necessarily give all the praise, but Davis Schneider did hit that long double. Him and Vlad were working on some stuff sort of before the game. And you can tell exactly what's funny is on the TV broadcast, it shows what Vlad is like sort of showing them. And it's keeping your weight back. And if it's a pitch that you have to chase or you're going to chase, keep that weight back and keep that weight through the ball and more so throw the bat out to the ball. And that's exactly what Davis did on that first at bat, which was nice to see. There's some people that always talk about that Davis isn't changing anything, that he's not working on anything. Well, today's at bat showed me that, okay, he is working through it. Yes, he still went 1 for 3 or whatever he went. But at the end of the day, this shows us that he's working towards something. So I think everybody saying that now can take that with a grain of salt, because that at bat showed me exactly what I needed to see, that he is trying to work things out. And the exact same thing before his at bat that they were showing Vlad and him working on was exactly what he went out and did, and almost hit a home run, was about a couple feet shy, just off the top of the wall. So hat tips to him, trying to work through things. It's where you're at. You got to try. You got to try a bunch of different things. You got to see what works and see what sticks. But Carter, I'm going to throw it to you. I know you will probably want to talk about Bowdin Francis. So Bowdin Francis, what a great day I think a pretty good day from him. I don't want to say what a great day, but a pretty good day from the kid.
Yeah, I'll start with my boy Bowdin. Obviously, you know how much I like to talk about that guy. And then I'll kind of get into the Davis Schneider stuff that you went into. I think there's some interesting points we can cover there. But Bowdin today, you look at that first home run ball, Kyle Schwarber, not a bad pitch. You had at the top of the zone, maybe catches, you mount that a little bit higher to Kyle Schwarber. But this guy's just, apparently just loves the Rogers Center, just loves playing in Canada. Maybe that's another reason why that guy already said his name, but maybe would have liked the Rogers Center playing here 80-something games a year. But anyway, looking at this guy, looking at the Bowdin Francis, you get that home run to Clemens as well. Inside fastball, not necessarily that bad of a pitch. You probably want that more inside, maybe a little bit higher as well. But with Bowdin Francis, his biggest issues are command, which he has not had command issues whatsoever. Not walking guys, has 0 walks again today, 6 strikeouts, as you mentioned. But it's keeping the ball in the yard. And again, with Kyle Schwarber, I'm going to give him a little bit of leeway there. Clemens at the bottom of an order in the Philadelphia Phillies. You look, again, we said how talented it already is. But you can't let the bottom of the order against the Philadelphia Phillies team hurt you, especially when you got a top of the order, as gross and disgusting as the Philadelphia Phillies are. You obviously the guy who I'm trying not to name on this podcast, leading it off. Then you got guys like Trey Turner. I don't think he was playing in this specific game, but JT Realmuto, heard you later on in the game. Bryson Stott was in there. So many good players, obviously, on the Phillies team. Very deep team. So you look at Bowdin Francis, you look at the start from a broad perspective. 6 innings pitched. Obviously, you said 6 hits, no walks. You're allowing 1 base runner, give or take an inning. I'm taking that against the Philadelphia Phillies. That's a quality start. it's exactly what you want from Bowdin Francis, who's not supposed to be a top 3 starting pitcher on your team, but boy, has he ever been playing like one. So shout out to Bowdin Francis. That split finger fastball, the splitter that he has been throwing, has been working really well for him, is still getting the strikeouts on that pitch, working a lot better off of that fastball and that slider that he has been using. So, Bowdin Francis continues to grind and continues to be productive for the Toronto Blue Jays. I'm not going to complain about a quality start against one of the best offenses and best lineups throughout baseball. So, with David Schneider, I mean, if you're going to struggle, you're looking at David Schneider. He's been struggling for an extended period of time. You can't say that it's just like a slump now. Something's obviously not working. So, if you're going to have to change something. Yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But something is obviously broken with David Schneider. So you got to try to fix it, and that's what he's doing. And what better person to ask to fix your swing than the guy that might take the AL batting title this season in Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So you see him talking. You take any advice that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. gives you and look at that swing, and it worked out pretty well for Davis. And another guy that you're not expecting to see him go 4 for 4 every single night, but with how he's been recently, you just want to see positive signs, and that was a positive sign. Didn't have the greatest at-bats throughout the game after that, but he had one good at-bat. You start with that. You find it right away. And when you look at David Schneider, and you said kind of just throw the bat at the ball, David Schneider looks like he lives at like a 24-hour fitness. Like this guy's jacked. Like you don't have to swing out of your shoes every single time when you're as big as David Schneider is. So you can just get the bat on the ball. Sometimes it is just throwing the bat at the ball. And if you can barrel it up, it's going to go a long way. Again, he just has to have a small, compact swing. Maybe that's something you can look into his 2-strike approach. Going to help him out definitely for the future. Maybe it'd be a little bit easier for him to get to that high fastball, choke up on the bat a little bit, maybe shorten your swing out, get something in play. It's going to be a lot easier for you to get on base when you put something in play. At least give yourself a chance to get on base rather than striking out and not putting any pressure on the defense that you're playing against. But again, you have some problems. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. probably going to be the first person that I would talk to if I was struggling at the plate for the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said, Carter. I don't know how long ago that was. Maybe it might have been a week or so, 2 weeks ago now, that I talked about David Schneider's swing. And it looks like he swings out of his boots, and he's one of the most jacked guys I've seen. And all he's got to do is just, put the bat on it. It's going to go. Like, shorten it up, watch the ball to the bat, and just keep compact. I think that's the biggest thing for him. When he's not moving as much and he's not throwing his body at the ball, and he's more so just trying to get some contact, you see the difference. And on that pitch was one of them. So again, we watch all these games, we watch little things, and again, we're not MLB players, we don't know what to say, but we still have eyes. We're still baseball players. We've watched the game, we've loved the game, we've seen the game all our lives. So it's little things that you pick up, and again, like I said, we're not baseball coaches. We don't, we're not MLB players. It's just, our thought process on all of this as well. And it seemed to work. So at the end of the day, I mean, take what you want from that. But good on him going to Vlad or talking to him and trying to work through it. Props to him. Carter, there's still a lot more that we want to get to from this game. I think let's take a quick break. We come back with more. Since it is an off day tomorrow, we don't got to set up a series. We'll do that tomorrow. So we'll get more into this game sort of when we come back right away.
Are you taking that dream vacation this summer but dreading the cost? With Ibotta, you can get cash back on all your purchases just so you can spend more time making the memories this summer and less time dreaming about them. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. That could cover the cost of the entire shopping trip, buy that flight you've been eyeing, that Blue Jays game you've been dying to go to, or that fancy dinner you've been craving. Other apps give you points that don't amount to much. With Ibotta, just add your offers in the app, upload your receipt, and you can get real cash that you can cash out to your bank account, PayPal, or gift cards. Join the 50 million savers that earn cash back every time you shop from over 2,700 brands and retailers, including Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. So right now, Ibotta is offering listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta and using the code LOCKEDONMLB when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app, start earning cash back, and use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKEDONMLB.
So Carter, just sort of more into this game is that, I talk about a couple guys and then he goes on tangents. And, as we do, if you guys have been listening to Locked On Blue Jays forever, we start on one thing and we end up on 30 different topics because that's just how the show goes. And you know what? It's fun. It's fun to sort of just snap it around. And, I feel like I went back actually, Carter, and what's hilarious is I went back and I watched our first episode when we took over Locked On Blue Jays. And oh my goodness, dude, it was not smooth at all. It was it was the most stagnant thing ever. For the people that have stuck around with us since that day, I think when we had like 700 subscribers and sort of getting through the motions and figuring out setups and all the technology that goes into podcasts and everything like that. Wow, good on you, because we've made it this far. It might not be still like the greatest show of all time, but we're here snapping it around, having some fun talking Blue Jays. And I think it's gotten a lot better since we started. So just sort of a funny thing there. Carter, what else you got on today's game or yesterday's game? It was sort of just a lot of little things that we've sort of picked up on. Anything else that you sort of saw from yesterday's game?
Yeah, a couple things, but yeah, we moved on from the AI generators. Actually, having a little bit of fun with this podcast, maybe a little bit of nerves, maybe just not being used to being on camera. I don't know what the thing was, but we do snap it around a little bit more, just a lot more comfortable on this podcast now, which is just great to see. Obviously, the fan interactions, the comments, all the debate stuff like that make it a lot easier, and just all the support that we've been getting. I'd say it's probably like 98% support. And then obviously you get those fun comments from time to time that I actually do love seeing, just because we do like to poke fun at each other and all of our friends outside of this podcast and stuff like that as well. So yeah, we definitely appreciate you guys sticking around, especially with how we started this podcast and how the Toronto Blue Jays season has went. So not a lot going our way off rip, but hey, we're battling, we're putting the time in, and I think it's been paying off so far. So looking at the Toronto Blue Jays, just overall from this game, Christopher Sanchez, his changeup is disgusting. Like, this is like Trevor Richards. Like, it might be better. I think it actually is better than Trevor Richards' changeup. It is a very good changeup. A guy that only has 3 pitches. You got to be effective. If you got to have some effective pitches if you only have 3, and that changeup does it for Christopher Sanchez. But those 2 swings, the 2 I want to talk about is Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s double. Stays on that really well. Pulls side, 40th double of the year, by the way. That's pretty insane for Vladdy. A lot of these guys on the Toronto Blue Jays don't even have 40 RBIs, so you get 40 doubles. That's an impressive feat. And then you have Alejandro Kirk, who DHing, which would not have been a fan of earlier on this season. Now definitely don't hate it. A guy that's had a lot better and a lot more productive at-bats over the last little bit. You see a little bit of flashes from the 2022 Alejandro Kirk that we've saw obviously that year, just lining the ball, putting better swings on the baseball. And he does that on this changeup in the first inning as well. Stays on it very well. Very similar swing to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Gets a double. I think it was over the head of Brandon Marsh, just barely to center field. So, yeah, great swing from him. Like, you'll love to see that from 2 guys that are going to be starters and regulars on your 2025 Toronto Blue Jays team. But you go into some other stuff. Other than this, like, for the offense, pretty much nothing happened for the Toronto Blue Jays after that. Pretty much the second inning, the bats fall asleep. You get nothing else. Christopher Sanchez kind of settles in, and he does his thing and keeps the Blue Jays hitters on their toes. Looking at it defensively, Brendan Little looked good. I liked what he had for the Toronto Blue Jays. Ryan Burr, JT Realmuto home run. Again, kind of felt like the offense was dead at that point. It seems like we were kind of beaten with the shovel. Not a lot of life for this Toronto Blue Jays team, which hasn't really been a common theme that we've had on this podcast. Usually it's been talking about the bullpen or some of the starting pitching blow-ups that we've had recently. But overall, over the last couple weeks here, the offense has been really good. Bullpen still struggling a little bit. And you got some guys on the offense and the starting pitching that have been really good, with Jose Barrios, Kevin Gausman, and Bowdin Francis really figuring it out. But then you have guys like Yariel Rodriguez, and then Chris Bassett a little bit has been struggling as of recently. Again, Chris Bassett not worried about. Yariel Rodriguez a little bit more worried about, but he hasn't thrown a lot of innings. And then you take the positives with Bowdin Francis, what you're getting obviously from your veterans. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got from this game. I'd like to see Leo Jimenez out there. That guy's just gritty. Like to see some gritty baseball players place the game the right way. But yeah, it's a tough loss to the Philadelphia Phillies. Not taking too much away from it. You get some good performances. Philadelphia Phillies are a good baseball team. If this in any honestly Toronto Blue Jays baseball team, if you're splitting, I'm taking that as a win a lot of the time. And let the tankathon commence.
Yeah, dude. You know what? I don't really have a ton else either. I feel like we've been sort of through this and we sort of know what was coming. It was nice to, pick apart some of these plays, but I mean, overall 4-2 loss. There's not a ton to take out of this. Sort of the other thing I want to bring up, Carter, and this might put a sour taste in your mouth here, but I always have to bring a little bit of negativity. This one I'm going to direct at you a little bit, and prop myself up, I guess. I am in the semifinals of our fantasy baseball league. Yeah, we also haven't checked the fantasy baseball app in, I don't know, months, Carter. I think it's pretty much dead, but I just looked today and I'm apparently in the semifinals. So props to me. I just know how to draft a good team. And we'll sort of just see. I should know after this week, and then we move into the final. So we'll see if my team can pull it out with absolutely zero roster moves being made since about week 2. It's fun. We got our NFL fantasy starting tomorrow or today, I guess, when this podcast comes out. So that's going to be a blast. I'm really pumped for that. Chiefs Ravens Thursday night football. It's going to be a ton of fun. NHL fantasy. We're big fantasy guys. Maybe next year what we'll do is we'll create like an open league or something, fantasy league for baseball, where if you guys are interested, you can join it and you just set your lineup every week, and we can make something like that where it's not like a huge, sit down and draft. It's just like where you add your guys in every week. I do that for CFL football. For those of you who pay attention to that, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers have one set up, and we play through that sort of that week to week sort of thing. So maybe we'll try that next year. I've had a ton of fun with fantasy, and we always do. So I'll look into that for next year and try to set something up for the Locked On Blue Jays podcast listeners. Carter, I guess if you don't have anything else, I mean, this is just, we've actually kept it to a decent time today for some reason.
Yeah, interesting. One of the shorter episodes that you're going to see from the Locked On Blue Jays guys, especially during season. Off season might get a little different. Obviously there is a lot of times in the off season that not a lot happens, so we might get a little bit more of our personalities into it. Maybe go with some off-brand stuff. Maybe get some just takes about sports, random things. I got some baseball questions that I can eventually ask you, Braden, but I'll save those for the off season. But I guess congrats to you for your semi-final appearance. That again, as soon as I found out that the prize pool was not going to be paid out. Didn't have the greatest draft, but I was battling. I was going to get manager of the year with the squad I had. Just a player's coach, as they called me in the fantasy football world.
The John Schneider of fantasy baseball.
Yeah, let's not exactly go in that direction. But as soon as I stopped managing my team, I'm 0-4. And then I looked at it the other day as well when Braden was making fun of me for not making our baseball playoffs. A little bit unfortunate. But again, when the league kind of falls apart, I'm not going to spend my time doing something like that when there's no prize pool, especially when I could be just rinsing your wallet and all the fantasy football money that I'll be making off of you. And again, one of the things that eventually I'm going to ask you is just we'll do some fantasy rankings, like what your favorite one is. One thing I will say, my take on it, you can probably figure out where I'm at. I don't find myself looking at the fantasy baseball page for 15 minutes a day, just aimlessly, just visualizing how my boys on the weekend or on Sunday are going to perform. I probably wasted a good 4 hours, and it's only been a week just looking at my fantasy football teams. That's kind of where we're at. But Braden, that's all I got. Not too much from the baseball front. We got another off day Thursday, so we'll be coming at you with a little bit of an interesting episode. A little bit again more future focused about the Toronto Blue Jays. But Braden, you got anything else to add? I know you got something about Sully, but that's all I got from this side of the podcast.
Yeah, one more thing before we get out of here. We always appreciate you guys making us your first listen every day. But if you want to find a second listen, we suggest taking a look at Locked On MLB with host Paul Sullivan. Sully, our guy, we always say it, fun podcast. We've been on it and it was an absolute blast. He runs a really fun show, keeps sort of everybody up to date on sort of the big storylines happening in the MLB. So it's really interesting. We suggest go check it out. Locked On MLB. Anywhere you listen to your podcast and on YouTube. So besides that, Carter, a lot more to come from us here. We're not going anywhere. We hope we're going to be doing this for the next, I don't know, Carter, 50 years? You think you can do this for another 50 years when we're 70 and crippled?
Maybe if we get one World Series in those 50 years, I'm going to need something probably in the middle there to cure the depression that the Toronto Blue Jays are causing us. But we'll be snapping around hopefully for a long time. Hopefully snapping around this podcast for longer than we can walk. So we'll have to see. Maybe we'll throw some bets on that. The podcast or our ability to walk and be mobile. But we'll have to snap that around when the time comes. Hopefully not for a long time.
All right, guys. Thanks a bunch. Check it out tomorrow. Big episode, sort of a future look ahead on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Blue Jays.